At 2:17 a.m., Maria was staring at her ceiling. Doing maths, she already knew the answer to $32,000 in credit card debt. An interest rate that never slept on a paycheck that arrived just in time to disappear again. Nothing dramatic had happened. No medical emergency. No failed business. Just years of normal life. Groceries. Gas. Rent. A few, I'll deal with it later. Decisions stacked on top of each other. That's how debt usually starts. Quietly. Politely. And then one day it speaks louder than everything else in your life. What makes Maria's story unusual isn't how she got into debt. It's that she got out completely against odds that statistically were not on her side. And that's why this matters right now. Because household debt in the US and Europe is sitting near record highs, interest rates have reset upward. Wages haven't caught up, and millions of people are discovering something uncomfortable at the same time. Debt doesn't care how responsible you think you are. It only cares about math. And the math is brutal. Here's the part most people never hear explained clearly. Debt is not just money you owe. It's a system designed around time, behavior, and probability. Credit cards, personal loans, buy now, pay later plans. They all rely on the same assumption. That future, you will be richer, calmer, and more disciplined than present you statistically. That future person rarely shows up. Maria worked full time. She paid more than the minimum. She avoided luxury spending. On paper, she was doing the right things. But every month, interest quietly reversed her progress. At 22% APR, her balance grew faster than her payments reduced it. Not dramatically, just enough to keep her stuck. This is the part people don't like hearing. Debt traps aren't created by irresponsibility. They're created by small, reasonable decisions interacting with compounding interest. Now zoom out. In 2009, James was a construction supervisor in Ireland. When the housing market collapsed, his hours were cut. Then his job disappeared. The mortgage didn't. For 2 years, he lived in what economists politely call financial limbo. Not bankrupt. Not solvent. Just frozen. Every month was a negotiation between utilities, food, and dignity. Here's the uncomfortable mechanism at work. Debt systems assume stability. Stable income. Stable prices. Stable employment. But real life isn't stable. It's volatile. And when volatility enters the picture, debt stops behaving like a tool and starts behaving like gravity. The heavier it gets, the harder it is to move. James didn't escape because he suddenly earned more. He escaped because he did something most people never do. He stopped trying to outrun the system and started renegotiating it. He contacted lenders early. Not when accounts were delinquent, but when the math still barely worked. Interest reductions. Temporary freezes. Longer terms. Not favors. Incentives. Banks prefer controlled losses over chaotic defaults. That's a sentence no one advertises. Now, here's where the stories start to diverge from public hype. You've probably heard that people escape debt by budgeting harder, hustling more, or finding the perfect strategy. That narrative is comforting and incomplete because budgeting doesn't change interest rates and hustle doesn't always outpace compounding. What actually changes outcomes is leverage, not financial leverage, but behavioral and structural leverage. Take Aisha, a single mother in the UK. She had £18,000 in consumer debt, multiple lenders, multiple interest rates, multiple deadlines designed to collide. She didn't consolidate immediately. She mapped every balance, every APR, every penalty trigger. Then she did something counterintuitive. She stopped spreading payments evenly. High-interest balances were attacked aggressively. Low-interest ones were kept alive. Barely. Not because it felt good, but because the math demanded it. Within the first year, her total payments actually increased, while her lifestyle shrank. That's the part no one posts on social media. Escaping debt often feels worse before it feels better. There's also irony here. The same systems that punish people for carrying debt will quietly reward them once the balance drops below certain thresholds. Lower utilization rate, better credit scores, cheaper refinancing options. The door opens only after you're halfway through the fire, and most people turn back before that moment arrives. Now let's talk about the uncomfortable truth most financial advice avoids. Some people never escape debt, not because they're lazy or careless, but because the numbers never work in their favor. Low income plus high interest plus unstable expenses equals a closed equation. The stories you're hearing today are not proof that anyone can do it. They're proof that systems can sometimes be navigated, but rarely beaten without. Maria moved apartments. James downsized and delayed retirement. Aisha cut every optional expense for nearly 3 years. No miracles. No passive income. No overnight transformations. Just controlled damage over time. And that's what makes these stories uncomfortable. They don't sell hope. They sell reality. Debt freedom didn't arrive as a celebration. It arrived as silence. No more late-night math. No more payment juggling. No more background anxiety humming under every decision. But here's the part that lingers. All three escaped. And all three say the same thing afterward. They would never willingly re-enter the system the same way again. Because once you understand how debt actually works, not emotionally, but mechanically, you see it differently. You stop asking, can I afford the payment? And start asking, what does this do to my future flexibility? That question alone filters out most traps, which brings us to the final unresolved thought. Debt isn't evil, and avoiding it entirely isn't realistic. But the line between using debt and being used by it is thinner than most people realize, and it usually isn't crossed in a crisis. It's crossed on an ordinary Tuesday with a reasonable decision made under mild stress. So here's the question worth sitting with. If your income stopped growing tomorrow, but your debt kept compounding, would your current life still make sense? Most people don't find out until it's too late.